The galaxy had forgotten what war looked like. Ambassador Kethra stood on the observation deck of the Grand Assembly Hall, watching the celebration unfold across the shining towers of Nexus Prime. Fireworks painted the sky in colors that her species, the Cylindrathi, found particularly beautiful. Blues and purples burst against the darkness, reflecting off the glass spires that stretched toward the stars. "Another century of peace," said her assistant, a young male named Torvis. He stood beside her with a drink in his hand, his silver skin glowing faintly in the light. "The Jubilee celebrations will last for 3 standard days this time." Kethra nodded slowly. She was old by the standards of her people. She had served the Galactic Concord for nearly 200 years. In all that time, she had never seen a real weapon fired in anger. None of her generation had. None of their parents had. The last true war had ended 12,000 years ago, when the terrible Velthari Dominion fell to a great alliance of species. That war was ancient history now. Children learned about it in schools the same way they learned about the formation of stars. It was something that had happened long ago, in a time that felt almost imaginary. "Do you ever think about it?" Kethra asked quietly. "Think about what, Ambassador?" "The war. The old war." Torvis laughed softly. "Why would I think about that? It ended before my great-great-grandmother was born. We live in peaceful times now." Kethra did not answer. She turned her gaze upward, past the fireworks, past the glowing city, to the stars themselves. Somewhere out there, beyond the edges of mapped space, there was a region that no ship ever visited. The quarantine zone, they called it. A vast section of the galaxy surrounded by an energy barrier that had stood for 12,000 years. Nobody talked about what was inside that barrier. The records were sealed. The history was classified at the highest levels. Kethra had tried to access those files once, early in her career. She had been told politely but firmly that some knowledge was not meant to be shared. She had never asked again. "Come," she said to Torvis. "We should join the other delegates." It would be rude to miss the council leader's speech. They walked through the crowded halls of the assembly building. Representatives from 100 different species filled the space. The Concord had grown large over the millennia. Tall, insect-like Kreeth walked alongside the floating gas beings of the Warship collective. The rock-skinned Goreth exchanged pleasantries with the delicate, bird-like Aethoni. All of them were peaceful. All of them had been peaceful for thousands of years. The Concord's laws were strict on this matter. The Sacred Accords, signed after the ancient war, banned the manufacture of weapons above a certain power level. Military vessels had been dismantled. The great warships of old had been turned into museums or broken down for scrap. What remained was a defense fleet of lightly armed patrol ships, designed to handle pirates and nothing more. War was not just ended, it was impossible. The galaxy had made sure of that. Council leader Morthax stood at the center of the great chamber, his massive form casting a shadow across the assembled delegates. He was a Goreth, nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like gray stone. When he spoke, his voice rolled through the room like distant thunder. "Friends," he said, "allies, fellow citizens of the Concord, we gather today to celebrate 100 more years of peace, 100 years without conflict, 100 years of cooperation and growth." The crowd applauded. Kethra joined them, though her hearts were not fully in it. "When our ancestors defeated the Velthari Dominion," Morthax continued, "they made a promise. They swore that never again would the galaxy know the horror of war. They built the Concord to keep that promise, and for 12,000 years, we have succeeded." More applause. Louder this time. "Some say that peace makes us weak," Morthax said. "They say that without conflict, we grow soft. I say they are wrong. Peace has made us strong. Peace has allowed us to build wonders that our warlike ancestors could never have imagined. Peace is not the absence of strength. Peace is the highest form of strength." Kethra wanted to believe those words. She truly did, but something in the back of her mind whispered doubt, a question that she had carried for many years, a question that no one seemed willing to answer. If peace was truly so strong, why did they need the barrier? Why was an entire section of the galaxy sealed away? What were they so afraid of? The speech ended. The celebration continued. Kethra made her way through the crowd, smiling and nodding at familiar faces. She was good at this part of her job. She had spent 2 centuries learning how to be polite, how to say the right things, how to keep her doubts hidden behind a mask of diplomacy. Later that night, she returned to her quarters. The celebration noise faded as her door closed. She sat by the window and looked out at the stars once more. Her personal communicator buzzed. A message from an old friend, Director Ythro, who commanded the Concord patrol station at the edge of the Outer Territories. She opened it. Kethra. The message read, "Something strange. Our deep space sensors picked up an anomaly near the barrier today. Probably just a malfunction. The equipment out here is old, but I thought you might want to know." The reading suggested something large moving inside the quarantine zone. Very large. Almost like a ship. But that is impossible, of course. Nothing could survive in there. I will update you if we find anything else. Stay well, old friend. Kethra read the message twice. Then she deleted it. Probably just a malfunction, she told herself. Nothing to worry about. She went to bed. But she did not sleep well. Far across the galaxy, at the edge of known space, Director Ythro stood in the command center of monitoring station Theta 9. The station was small and old, staffed by a skeleton crew of technicians who spent most of their time playing games and waiting for their rotation to end. Nothing ever happened out here. That was the whole point. The quarantine zone stretched before them, visible on the main display as a vast sphere of red. The barrier surrounding it glowed faintly with ancient energy. It had been built by the greatest engineers of the old Alliance, designed to last forever. Nothing could get in. Nothing could get out. Run the diagnostic again, Ythro ordered. His senior technician, a young Cylindrathi named Velith, sighed and tapped at his console. Director, this is the 5th time. The sensors are working fine. Whatever we saw, it was a ghost reading. A reflection. Space dust. Something. The reading showed a mass signature equivalent to a large vessel. There are no large vessels in the quarantine zone, Velith said patiently. There is nothing in the quarantine zone. Everyone knows that. Ythro wanted to argue, but he had no evidence to support his concerns. The sensors had returned to normal. The barrier stood unchanged. Everything was exactly as it had been for 12,000 years. Fine, he said. Log it as a sensor anomaly and continue normal operations. Already done, sir. Ythro returned to his quarters. He poured himself a drink and stared at the wall. He was old for a commander. His species, the Kreth, lived for about 300 years, and he was approaching that limit. He had served at this station for decades, watching nothing, reporting nothing, waiting for a retirement that grew closer every day. But something about today's reading bothered him. Not just the size of the signature. Something else. Something that the sensors had recorded for just a fraction of a second before the anomaly disappeared. The signature had been moving, not drifting, like debris, not floating, like a natural object, moving with purpose, moving with direction, moving toward the barrier. He shook his head. Paranoia. That was all. Too many years in deep space, staring at an empty zone where nothing ever happened. His mind was playing tricks on him. He finished his drink and went to sleep. 3 days later, the barrier shattered. It happened without warning. One moment, the ancient energy field stood strong, as it had for millennia. The next moment, it simply broke. The energy scattered like glass, dissolving into the void. The sensors at Station Theta 9 screamed with alarms. Velith was the first to reach the command center. He stared at the display with wide eyes, unable to process what he was seeing. That is not possible, he whispered. Ythro arrived seconds later. He pushed past the panicking technicians and looked at the main screen. The quarantine zone was open. The barrier that had sealed it for 12,000 years was gone. What broke it? He demanded. I do not know, sir. The energy readings suggest it was destroyed from the inside. Something hit it from within. Something powerful. From the inside? Nothing is supposed to be inside. I know, sir. But, Velith's voice trailed off. He pointed at the screen. Something was emerging from the zone. The sensors painted it in harsh red lines, struggling to measure its mass and configuration. It was a ship. A very large ship, larger than anything the Concord had built in thousands of years. 3 kilometers, Velith said, his voice shaking. The ship is 3 kilometers long. Ythro felt his heart stop. 3 kilometers. That was the size of the ancient dreadnoughts from the old war. The ships that had been designed to destroy worlds. No one had built vessels like that in 12,000 years. No one remembered how. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. Demand identification. Velith complied. Static filled the speakers for a long moment. Then a voice answered. A voice speaking in a language that the universal translator struggled to process. An ancient language, a language that had not been heard in the galaxy for millennia. The translator finally caught up. The words became clear. This is the United Earth ship Prometheus. We are emerging from quarantine. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if threatened. Please respond. United Earth ship, Earth. The word hit Yithro like a physical blow. He knew that word. Everyone knew that word, even if they never spoke it. It was buried in the oldest records, hidden in the classified files, whispered in rumors that most people dismissed as myth. Humans. The humans were real, and they were here. Sir? Velith looked at him with terror in his eyes. What do we do? Yithro did not answer. He could not answer. For the first time in his long career, he had absolutely no idea what to do. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Elena Vance watched the small monitoring station appear on her screens. It was tiny, fragile, nothing like the massive battle stations that her ancestors had described in the old records. They are scanning us, her tactical officer reported. Low power sensors, civilian grade. Vance nodded slowly. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been born on Earth 212 years ago. She had spent most of that time in cryogenic sleep, waiting for this moment. The moment when humanity would finally break free. Open a channel, she ordered. Let us try again. Maybe they did not understand the first time. Her communications officer, a young man named Chen, nodded and transmitted the message again. This time, he added visual. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the alien station's command center. The aliens were tall and insect-like, with multiple limbs and large compound eyes. They stared at the human crew with expressions that might have been fear, confusion, or both. I am Captain Elena Vance of the United Earth ship Prometheus, she said calmly. We have been in quarantine for a very long time. We mean you no harm, but we would like some answers. The alien commander stepped forward. His voice was shaky when he spoke. I am Director Yithro of the Galactic Concord. Humans were supposed to be extinct. The quarantine was supposed to kill you. Vance smiled. It was not a friendly smile. We are very hard to kill, Director. Now, I think you should contact your superiors. Tell them that humanity is back, and tell them we want to talk. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Kethra was woken by an emergency alert. The message that appeared on her screen made no sense at first. She read it 3 times before the words finally registered. The barrier had fallen. The humans had survived. A warship was coming. She sat in the darkness of her room, her heart's pounding. The rumors were true. The old stories were true. The species that her ancestors had tried so hard to erase from history was still alive, and they had a warship. A real warship. The kind of ship that the galaxy had not seen in 12,000 years. Kethra thought about all those peaceful celebrations, all those speeches about how war was impossible, all those proud claims that the galaxy had evolved beyond violence. The galaxy had let down its guard. They had convinced themselves that they were safe, that peace would last forever. They had been wrong. Outside her window, the fireworks had stopped. The towers of Nexus Prime still glowed in the night. But somehow, everything looked different now. More fragile, more temporary. A storm was coming. Kethra could feel it in her bones, and she had a terrible feeling that the galaxy was not ready. The Prometheus continued its journey inward, toward the heart of civilized space. Behind it, the broken barrier hung in space like a wound in the stars, a wound that would never heal. Captain Vance stood on her bridge and looked at the galaxy that had imprisoned her people. They had spent 12,000 years trapped behind that barrier. 12,000 years building, preparing, waiting. 12,000 years asking the same question over and over again. Why? Now, finally, she was going to find out. The crew worked quietly around her. They were all professionals. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, the best that Earth had to offer. They had trained for this mission their entire lives. Their parents had trained before them, their grandparents before that, generation after generation, preparing for the day when the barrier would finally fall. That day had come. Captain, Chen said from his station, I am picking up transmissions from all over the galaxy. They are talking about us. The news is spreading. Let them talk, Vance said. We have nothing to hide. Some of the transmissions are fearful. They are calling us monsters. Killers. They say we are coming to destroy them. Vance shook her head slowly. We did not cross the galaxy to destroy anyone. We came for answers. And we came to warn them. Warn them about what, Captain? Vance looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between galaxies, something was moving. Something old. Something terrible. The long-range sensors on Earth had detected it years ago. A signal from the deep past. A weapon left behind by the Velthari Dominion. The galaxy had forgotten about the Velthari. They had forgotten about war. They had forgotten about everything dangerous, but the danger had not forgotten about them. They will find out soon enough, Vance said quietly. For now, we move forward. We find out why they locked us away, and then we figure out how to save them from what is coming. The Prometheus flew on, a black shape against the stars, the deadliest warship that Earth had ever built, the last hope of a galaxy that did not know it needed saving. The age of complacency was over. The age of reckoning had begun. The UES Prometheus moved through space like a predator. Its hull was black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. 3 kilometers of armor, weapons, and engines that the galaxy had never seen before. It did not look like the sleek, elegant ships that the Conquered used for trade and transport. It looked like what it was, a machine built for one purpose: war. Captain Elena Vance stood at the center of the bridge, watching the stars drift past on the main display. They had been traveling for 6 days since breaking through the barrier. 6 days of silence from the Galactic Concord. 6 days of waiting for someone to respond to their messages. Still nothing? She asked. Commander James Park, her first officer, shook his head. They are receiving our transmissions. We can tell that much from the relay traffic. But no one is answering directly. I think they are scared. They should be, said Lieutenant Chen from the communication station. We just broke through a barrier that was supposed to be unbreakable. They probably think we are here to attack them. Vance turned to look at her crew. 20 men and women worked on the bridge, monitoring systems, analyzing data, keeping the massive ship running. They were the best humanity had produced in 12,000 years of isolation. Scientists who understood physics that the galaxy had forgotten. Engineers who could build weapons that no one else could imagine. Soldiers who had trained for combat their entire lives, even though they had never fought a real war. They were ready. But ready for what? Keep transmitting, Vance ordered. Make it clear that we want to talk. Nothing more. Captain, called Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka from the sensor station. I am detecting a vessel ahead. Small. Patrol class. It appears to be on an intercept course. Vance nodded. Finally, someone was coming to meet them. Let them come. Do not raise shields. Do not power weapons. We want them to see that we mean no harm. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. They had spent their whole lives preparing for the possibility of conflict. Lowering their defenses went against every instinct. But they trusted their captain. They followed her orders. The patrol ship appeared on the main display 20 minutes later. It was small, maybe 200 meters long, sleek and white, with the symbol of the Galactic Concord painted on its hull. A peaceful design, a diplomatic design. They are hailing us, Chen reported. Put them through. The screen changed to show the interior of the patrol ship's bridge. An alien stood at the center. He was tall and insect-like, with large compound eyes and forearms. His uniform bore the markings of a commander. Human vessel, he said. His voice was cold. Hostile. I am Commander Yithro, of the Concord Patrol Ship Vigilant. You have entered Concord space without authorization. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Vance studied him for a moment. So this was Director Yithro, the one who had sent the first message when they emerged from quarantine. He had apparently been given a ship and sent to confront them directly. Commander Yithro, she said calmly. I am Captain Elena Vance of the UES Prometheus. We are not here to fight. We are here to talk. We have questions about our quarantine, and we believe your leaders have the answers. You were quarantined for a reason, Yithro said. Your species was deemed too dangerous for integration into galactic society. The barrier was meant to contain you permanently. The barrier was meant to kill us, Vance corrected. The radiation inside was designed to sterilize any planet. Your ancestors tried to murder our entire species. They failed. Yithro's compound eyes flickered. Surprise, perhaps. Or fear. That cannot be true. The records say, the records lie. We have spent 12,000 years studying that barrier from the inside. We know exactly what it was designed to do. Now, I am asking nicely. Please contact your superiors. Tell them we want to meet with the council. We want to know why they tried to destroy us. And we want to warn them about something far worse that is coming. Warn us? Yithro's voice carried disbelief. You break through an ancient barrier with a warship the size of a city, and you claim you want to warn us? Yes. Because while your galaxy was celebrating peace and dismantling its weapons, something else was waking up. Something old. Something that your ancestors failed to destroy completely. Vance leaned forward. The Velthari left something behind, Commander. And it is coming. Silence fell over both bridges. Yithro stared at the human captain with an expression that was difficult to read. You are lying, he said finally. The Velthari were destroyed. Their empire was completely eliminated. Their empire was eliminated. Their people were killed. But they built weapons that survived. Automated systems. War machines designed to activate long after their creators were gone. We detected the signal from inside the quarantine zone. It took us decades to break through the barrier, but we came as fast as we could. This is madness. You expect me to believe that humans, the species we imprisoned for being too aggressive, came to save us? I expect you to deliver a message, Vance said. Nothing more. Tell your council that the Prometheus is coming to Nexus Prime. Tell them we want answers. And tell them to start looking at their long-range sensors, because if we are right, they do not have much time. Yithro's mandibles clicked together. A sign of frustration, perhaps, or anger. And if I refuse? If I order my ship to fire on you? Vance smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. Then you will learn why your ancestors were afraid of us. The threat hung in the air. Yithro looked at the massive warship on his display. The Prometheus dwarfed his patrol vessel by a factor of 15. Its hull bristled with weapons he did not recognize. Its armor was thicker than anything the Concorde had built in thousands of years. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he could not win this fight. But he was a commander of the Concorde. He had his pride. He had his duty. Vigilant to all stations, he said. Power weapons. Target the human vessel. His crew hesitated. They could see the size difference on their screens. They knew what they were facing. That is an order, Yithro said. Slowly, reluctantly, they obeyed. The Vigilance weapons powered up. Small energy cannons, designed for fighting pirates and smugglers. Not warships. Never warships. On the Prometheus, Lieutenant Tanaka reported the change. They are targeting us, Captain. Weapons hot. Raise shields, Vance ordered. Do not return fire. The bridge crew moved efficiently. The ship's defensive systems hummed to life. A bubble of energy surrounded the massive vessel, invisible to the naked eye but clearly visible on sensors. Yithro saw the shield activation on his display. He took a deep breath. Fire. The Vigilance cannons unleashed their full fury. Beams of blue energy lanced across space, striking the Prometheus's shields. The impact was visible as a brief flash of light. On the human bridge, nothing happened. No alarms. No damage reports. The shields absorbed the attack like water absorbing rain. Shield integrity at 99.9%, Tanaka reported. They are continuing to fire. Vance watched the display calmly. The Vigilant poured everything it had into the attack. Energy beams, plasma bursts, even a few small missiles. All of it splashed harmlessly against the Prometheus's shields. Their weapons are like toys, Park muttered. They really have forgotten how to fight. They have not needed to fight for 12,000 years, Vance said. That is not their fault. That is their blessing. She paused. But blessings can become curses when danger comes. The Vigilance attack continued for 5 full minutes. Then, finally, Yithro ordered a ceasefire. His weapons were overheating. His energy reserves were depleted. And the human ship had not even flinched. Impossible, he whispered. Our weapons should have at least scratched them. Vance opened a channel. Commander Yithro, are you finished? On the Vigilance bridge, Yithro stared at the screen. The human captain's face was calm, patient, almost sympathetic. How? He asked. How can your shields be so strong? We had 12,000 years to prepare, Vance said. 12,000 years trapped behind a barrier designed to kill us. We learned to survive. We learned to adapt. And we learned to build ships that could withstand anything the galaxy might throw at us. She paused. Now, I am going to demonstrate something. Do not be alarmed. Before Yithro could respond, a single beam of light shot from the Prometheus. It was not aimed at the Vigilance hull. It struck one of the small sensor dishes on the ship's exterior. The dish vanished in a flash of heat. Damage report, Yithro demanded. External sensor array 3 is destroyed, his tactical officer said, voice shaking. They fired a single shot. Surgical precision. They could have hit our reactor. They could have destroyed us completely. Yithro understood. The humans were showing restraint. They could have annihilated his ship with one volley. Instead, they had disabled a non-critical system. A warning shot. Do you understand now? Vance asked. We are not here to fight you. If we wanted to destroy your ship, we would have done it already. We want to talk. That is all. Please, Commander, deliver our message. Yithro stood in silence for a long moment. His crew watched him, waiting for orders. He could feel their fear. He could feel his own fear. But beneath the fear, something else was stirring. Curiosity, wonder, respect. These humans had been imprisoned for 12,000 years. They had been left to die in a radiation-filled zone of space. And they had not only survived, they had thrived. They had built technology that made the entire Concord look primitive by comparison. What else had they built? What else had they learned? Stand down, weapons, Yithro ordered. Send a message to Nexus Prime. Tell them. He paused, searching for the right words. Tell them the humans are coming. Tell them they want to talk. And tell them that I recommend we listen. His communications officer nodded and began transmitting. Vance watched from the Prometheus's bridge. A small smile crossed her face. He is smarter than I expected, Park observed. Most commanders would have kept fighting. Fear makes people stupid, Vance said. But that one learned fast. I think we might have found an ally. The Prometheus resumed its journey toward the heart of the galaxy. The Vigilant fell into formation behind it, not as an escort but as a witness. Yithro had decided to accompany the humans to Nexus Prime. He wanted to see what would happen next. 3 days later, the Prometheus reached the outer territories of the Concord's core systems. Ships scattered at its approach. Stations sent frantic warnings. The galaxy had not seen a warship of this size in millennia. It was like watching a monster from ancient legend walk out of the history books and into reality. But the humans did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply kept moving, broadcasting the same message over and over again. We come in peace. We want to talk. Please respond. On Nexus Prime, the Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 100 species crowded the assembly hall, all of them talking at once. Fear filled the chamber like smoke. Council leader Morthax tried to maintain order, but even his thunderous voice was lost in the chaos. The humans should be extinct. How did they break the barrier? What do they want? We should surrender. We should flee. Ambassador Kethra stood near the back of the chamber, watching the panic unfold. She had seen the reports. She had studied the sensor data. The human ship was everything the old records had warned about. A weapon of unimaginable power, crewed by a species that the galaxy had tried to erase from existence. And they were asking to talk. That was the part that confused everyone. If the humans wanted revenge, they could have started destroying colonies the moment they emerged from quarantine. They had the firepower to do it. Instead, they were moving slowly, peacefully, broadcasting messages of diplomacy. Why? Morthax finally managed to quiet the chamber. He raised his massive stone hands and waited until silence fell. Enough, he said. Panic will not save us. We must decide how to respond. The humans will arrive at Nexus Prime in 2 days. Do we meet them, or do we refuse? Refuse, shouted a delegate from the Athoni Federation. How can we refuse? Did you see their ship? One vessel defeated our entire patrol fleet. One vessel disabled a single sensor dish, Kethra said quietly. She stepped forward, and the chamber turned to look at her. They had every opportunity to destroy Commander Yithro's ship. They chose not to. They are showing restraint. Restraint today, another delegate argued. Massacre tomorrow. We cannot trust them. We do not have a choice. Kethra said. We have no warships. We have no weapons capable of threatening them. If they want to destroy us, they can do it whenever they wish. The only option we have is to talk, to find out what they want, to hope that they truly come in peace. The chamber erupted in argument again, but Morthax raised his hand once more. The ambassador speaks wisdom. We will meet the humans. We will hear what they have to say, and then we will decide what to do. He paused. May the stars protect us all. 2 days later, the Prometheus entered orbit around Nexus Prime. It hung in the sky like a black moon, visible from the planet's surface. Millions of citizens looked up and saw the shadow of humanity's return. Captain Vance stood on her bridge and studied the world below. A beautiful planet. Blue oceans, green continents, glittering cities. It looked peaceful, innocent. Prepare a shuttle, she ordered. I am going down there personally. Captain. That is extremely dangerous, Park protested. We do not know how they will react. They need to see that we are not monsters, Vance said. They need to see a human face, someone they can talk to, someone they can understand. She looked at her first officer. If something happens to me, you have command. Continue the mission. Warn them about what is coming, no matter what. Park nodded slowly. Understood, Captain. Good luck. Vance walked off the bridge without looking back. She had waited 200 years for this moment. 200 years in frozen sleep, dreaming of a galaxy that had tried to murder her people. Now she was finally going to meet the ones responsible. She was finally going to get her answers. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, surrounded by Concord escort vessels. Below, the towers of Nexus Prime rose to meet her. The assembly hall waited at the heart of the city, and inside that hall, the leaders of 100 species waited to meet the ghost they had thought buried forever. Humanity had returned. The galaxy would never be the same. Vance stepped off the shuttle onto the landing platform. She wore her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. Beside her walked 4 Marines in ceremonial armor. They carried no visible weapons. This was a diplomatic mission, but they were ready for anything. A delegation of aliens waited at the edge of the platform. Kethra stood at their front, chosen to be the first to greet the human captain. She looked at Vance with a mixture of fear and fascination. Welcome to Nexus Prime, she said. I am Ambassador Kethra. I will escort you to the council. Vance nodded. Thank you, Ambassador. I appreciate the welcome. Most of my colleagues wanted to refuse your landing request, but not you? Kethra hesitated. I believe in talking before fighting. It is usually more productive. Vance smiled. Then we might get along, Ambassador. Lead the way. They walked through the halls of the assembly building. Crowds of aliens watched them pass, their eyes filled with wonder and terror. Vance kept her head high. Her Marines walked in perfect formation behind her. 12,000 years of imprisonment. 12,000 years of waiting. And now, finally, the truth was within reach. The doors of the great chamber opened. 100 species turned to watch as the human delegation entered. Captain Elena Vance looked at the gathered leaders of the galactic Concord, the ones who had inherited the legacy of her people's betrayal, the ones who had built their peaceful civilization on a foundation of genocide. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, we need to talk. The age of complacency was over. The reckoning had begun. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Captain Elena Vance stood at the center of the room, surrounded by representatives of 100 different species. They stared at her with eyes of every shape and color. Compound eyes, single eyes, eyes on stalks, eyes that glowed in the dim light, all of them filled with the same emotions. Fear, confusion, hatred. But Vance did not flinch. She had waited 200 years for this moment. She had traveled across the galaxy in a ship that had taken generations to build. She was not going to be intimidated by stares. Council leader Morthax rose from his seat. His massive stone body cast a shadow across the chamber. When he spoke, his voice rolled like distant thunder. Captain Vance, you have broken through a barrier that has stood for 12,000 years. You have entered our space without permission. You have threatened our patrol ships, and now you demand an audience with this council. He paused. What do you want? Vance looked up at him calmly. I want the truth. The truth about what? About why we were imprisoned. About why your ancestors tried to murder our entire species. About why we have been erased from your history books. Tenfaunen. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "We do not know what you are talking about," Morthax said. "The quarantine was established to protect the galaxy from your violent nature. Humans were deemed too aggressive for integration into civilized society." "Too aggressive?" Vance repeated the word slowly. "That is what your records say, is it not? That we were dangerous, that we could not be trusted, that we needed to be contained for the safety of everyone else." "That is correct. And does anyone here know the real story?" Vance looked around the chamber. "Does anyone know what actually happened 12,000 years ago?" Silence. The delegates looked at each other with confusion. "No," Vance said. "I did not think so. Because the truth was classified at the highest levels, hidden away in archives that no one was allowed to access, erased from public memory." She stepped forward. "But we know the truth. We have spent 12,000 years studying it, and now I am going to share it with you." Morthax raised his hand. "We did not come here to listen to human propaganda. It is not propaganda. It is history. Your history. And you deserve to know it." Vance turned to one of her Marines. "Lieutenant, if you please." The Marine stepped forward and placed a small device on the floor. A holographic display flickered to life, filling the center of the chamber with images and data. 12,000 years ago, Vance began. The galaxy was at war. A terrible war against an empire called the Velthari Dominion. The Velthari believed they were the supreme species in the universe. They conquered world after world, enslaving or exterminating everyone they encountered. They were winning. The hologram showed images of Velthari ships, massive vessels bristling with weapons, fleets that darkened the stars, planets burning under orbital bombardment. The species that would later form the Galactic Concord tried to fight back. Vance continued. They formed an alliance. They built warships, but it was not enough. The Velthari were too powerful. The alliance was losing. More images, broken fleets, devastated worlds, refugees fleeing in overcrowded transports. And then they found us. Vance paused. Humanity had only recently achieved interstellar travel. We were new to the galaxy. Young, inexperienced. But we had something the other species lacked. "What?" Kethra asked from her seat. "We knew how to fight. We had spent our entire history at war with each other. Every generation, every century, conflict after conflict, battle after battle. We had refined the art of warfare to a degree that no other species could match." Vance smiled grimly. "The Alliance came to us and asked for help. They were desperate. They offered us full membership in their coalition. They promised us a place in the galaxy if we could help them defeat the Velthari." The hologram shifted. Now it showed human ships joining the Alliance fleet, smaller than the Velthari vessels, but faster, more maneuverable, armed with weapons that the Alliance had never seen before. "We agreed," Vance said. "We sent our fleets. We sent our soldiers. We fought alongside your ancestors against the Velthari Dominion." Images of battle filled the chamber. Human ships cutting through Velthari formations. Human marines storming enemy stations. Human commanders leading combined forces into victory after victory. "We turned the tide of the war," Vance said. "The Velthari had never faced an enemy like us. They did not understand our tactics. They could not predict our strategies. We fought in ways they had never imagined." The hologram showed a final, climactic battle. Thousands of ships clashing in the darkness of space. The Velthari flagship, a massive dreadnought the size of a moon, being torn apart by coordinated human attacks. "The war ended," Vance said quietly. "The Velthari Dominion was destroyed. Their planets were occupied. Their people were scattered. The galaxy was saved." She paused. The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate was staring at the holographic display, watching history unfold before their eyes. "And then your ancestors betrayed us." The hologram changed again. Now it showed human ships being surrounded, human colonies being blockaded, human populations being forced onto transport vessels. "They were afraid of us," Vance said. "We had won the war for them, but we had won it too well. They saw what we were capable of. They saw how we fought, and they decided that we were too dangerous to keep around." Her voice grew cold. "They told us that we were being honored, that we were being given our own sector of space to colonize. They called it a reward for our service, a gift for our sacrifices." She laughed bitterly. "It was a lie. They herded us into a region of space and then activated the barrier, a wall of energy designed to trap us inside forever. The hologram showed the barrier being constructed, massive generators positioned around the quarantine zone, energy fields linking together to form an impenetrable sphere. But the barrier was not just meant to contain us, Vance said. It was designed to kill us. The energy field generated radiation, a specific type of radiation that would sterilize any planet within the zone. Your ancestors wanted to make sure that no human would ever survive. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several delegates looked ill. That is not possible, Morthax said. His voice was no longer thunder. It was barely a whisper. The records do not mention any of this. Of course not. The records were falsified. The truth was hidden. Your ancestors erased humanity from history because they were ashamed of what they had done. Vance looked around the room. They betrayed the species that had saved them. They tried to commit genocide against their own allies. And then they covered it up and pretended it never happened. Silence fell over the chamber. The delegates sat frozen in their seats, processing what they had just heard. Kethra stood up slowly. Her voice trembled when she spoke. How did you survive? The radiation should have killed everyone within a few generations. We adapted, Vance said simply. Humans are very good at adapting. We developed technology to shield our planets. We built underground cities where the radiation could not reach. We rationed our resources. We did whatever was necessary to survive. She paused. And we prepared. For 12,000 years we built ships. We developed weapons. We trained soldiers. We knew that someday, somehow, we would break through that barrier. And when we did, we wanted to be ready. Ready for what? Morthax asked. Revenge. Vance shook her head. No, not revenge. We had plenty of time to think about revenge. Plenty of time to plan elaborate schemes of destruction. But in the end, we decided that revenge was pointless. Your ancestors are long dead. The people who betrayed us no longer exist. What would be the point of punishing you for crimes you did not commit? Then why are you here? Vance took a deep breath. Because something worse is coming. Something that threatens all of us. Human and alien alike. She gestured to the hologram. The image changed once more. Now it showed a distant region of space, a void between galaxies. And in that void, something was moving. When we destroyed the Veltari Dominion, we thought we had eliminated them completely. We were wrong. The Veltari were clever. They knew they might lose the war. So they created a backup plan. The hologram zoomed in on the moving objects. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. An entire fleet emerging from the darkness. Automated war machines, Vance explained. Designed to activate long after the Veltari themselves were gone. They were hidden in the void. Dormant. Waiting for a signal. That signal was sent 12,000 years ago. As the Dominion fell, it just took this long to reach them. What do they want? Kethra asked. They want to finish what the Veltari started. They are programmed to exterminate all organic life in the galaxy. Every species, every civilization, every living thing. Vance looked at the council with grim determination. We detected their approach from inside the quarantine zone. That is why we pushed so hard to break through the barrier. We came to warn you. Warn us? Morthax sounded incredulous. You came to warn the species that tried to murder you? Yes. Because if the Veltari fleet reaches this galaxy, it will not matter what happened 12,000 years ago. It will not matter who betrayed whom. We will all die together. Vance stepped closer to the council leader. The galaxy has been at peace for millennia. You have forgotten how to fight. You have no warships, no weapons, no military training. When that fleet arrives, you will be helpless. And you expect us to trust you? Morthax demanded. After everything you have told us? After learning that our ancestors tried to destroy you? I do not expect trust, Vance said. I expect survival. We can argue about the past later, after we deal with the present. Right now, the only ship in this galaxy capable of fighting the Veltari fleet is the Prometheus. You need us. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded that the humans be arrested. Others called for immediate alliance. Others simply screamed in panic. Kethra pushed through the crowd and approached Vance directly. How long? She asked. How long before the Veltari fleet arrives? Vance looked at her with something that might have been respect. Our sensors estimated 3 months when we left the quarantine zone. That was 6 days ago. So approximately 84 standard days. That is not enough time, Kethra said. We cannot build a defense fleet in 84 days. We do not even have the factories. We do not have the designs. I know. That is why I am here. The Prometheus alone cannot defeat the entire Velthari fleet. But we can buy you time. We can slow them down while you figure out what to do. Vance paused. But first I need something from you. What? The truth. All of it. Everything your ancestors knew about the Velthari. Every record, every file, every piece of data. If we are going to fight them, we need to understand them. Kethra nodded slowly. I will speak to the archivists. There are sealed records in the deep vaults. No one has accessed them in thousands of years. Then it is time to open them. Around them, the chamber continued to boil with argument and fear. But Kethra and Vance stood in an island of calm. 2 women from different species, different worlds, different histories, united by a common threat. Why are you helping us? Kethra asked quietly. After what we did to you, why would you risk your lives to save us? Vance was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Because that is what humans do. We fight. We struggle. We survive. But not just for ourselves. We protect the things we care about. We defend the people who need defending, even when they do not deserve it. She looked at the alien ambassador with ancient, weary eyes. Your ancestors made a terrible mistake. They were afraid, and fear made them do something unforgivable. But you are not your ancestors. You did not build that barrier. You did not choose to betray us. We benefited from it, Kethra said. We built our civilization on the peace that came from eliminating you. Yes, and now that peace is about to end. The question is whether you will face that ending alone, or whether you will let us help you. Vance extended her hand. What do you say, Ambassador? Are we allies? Kethra looked at the offered hand. Such a strange gesture. Such a human gesture. She reached out and took it. We are allies, she said. Behind them, Council Leader Morthax finally managed to restore order. His voice boomed across the chamber. Enough. We have heard the human captain's words. Now we must decide what to do. Do we believe her warning? Do we accept her offer of alliance? Or do we reject it and face the future alone? The debate raged for hours. But in the end, there was only one possible decision. The Concord had no weapons, no warships, no way to defend themselves against a threat they had thought eliminated millennia ago. They needed the humans. They needed the Prometheus. The vote was close, but it passed. A temporary alliance was declared. The sealed archives were opened. Teams of alien historians began working alongside human researchers, digging through 12,000 years of hidden history. And in orbit above Nexus Prime, the Prometheus waited, a black shadow against the stars, a reminder of what the galaxy had tried to bury, a promise of the battle to come. Captain Vance returned to her ship as night fell over the capital. She stood on the bridge and looked at the planet below. It is done, she said. They know the truth now. Will they trust us? Commander Park asked. Some will, some will not. It does not matter. When the Velthari fleet arrives, trust will become irrelevant. Survival will be the only thing that matters. She turned to face her crew. Begin integrating their sensor data with ours. I want to know the moment that fleet enters detection range. Yes, Captain. Vance walked to her quarters. She was tired. 200 years of sleep. And she was still tired. The weight of her mission pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. 12,000 years ago, humanity had saved the galaxy. They had been betrayed for their trouble. Imprisoned. Left to die. Now they were back. And once again, the galaxy needed saving. History, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. But Elena Vance was not laughing. She was preparing. Because somewhere in the darkness between stars, a fleet of death machines was coming. And when they arrived, humanity would be ready. They had always been ready. That was what it meant to be human. The night passed. Dawn broke over Nexus Prime. And in the archives beneath the assembly hall, researchers uncovered secrets that had been buried for millennia. The truth was finally free. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every world, every station, every ship received the broadcast simultaneously. Council leader Morthak stood before the cameras and spoke the words that no one had expected to hear in their lifetimes. Citizens of the Concord, what I am about to tell you will be difficult to accept, but you deserve the truth. He told them everything. The ancient war against the Velthari, the alliance with humanity, the betrayal, the quarantine, the attempted genocide, all of it, broadcast to every corner of civilized space. The reaction was chaos. Some species demanded answers from their governments. Others refused to believe it. Riots broke out on several worlds. The peace that had lasted for 12,000 years began to crack under the weight of revealed secrets. But there was no time for politics, no time for arguments. Because 70 days after the Prometheus arrived at Nexus Prime, the long-range sensors detected exactly what Captain Vance had warned them about. The Velthari reawakening fleet had entered the galaxy. Ambassador Kethra stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching the data scroll across the displays. The numbers were terrifying. 347 ships. Most of them were destroyers and cruisers, automated vessels designed to overwhelm enemies with sheer numbers. But at the center of the fleet, surrounded by its escorts, was something far worse. The Velthari flagship, a dreadnought the size of a small moon, the same class of vessel that had terrorized the galaxy 12,000 years ago, the same type of ship that had required the combined might of humanity and the Alliance to destroy, and now there was only one ship to face it. Can you beat them? Kethra asked. Captain Vance stood beside her, arms folded, eyes fixed on the display. Honestly, I do not know. The Prometheus is the most advanced warship humanity has ever built, but one ship against 347. She shook her head. We can hurt them. We can slow them down. But beat them? That would take a miracle. Then why are you going to fight? Vance looked at the alien ambassador. Because if we do not, who will? Your patrol ships? Your merchant vessels? The galaxy has no military, no defenses. If we run, those machines will roll over every world between here and the core. Billions will die. She turned back to the display. We did not come all this way just to watch the galaxy burn. We came to fight. So we will fight. Even if it means your death. Every human on this ship knew the risks when they volunteered for this mission. We have been preparing for this moment for generations. Dying in battle against the enemies of civilization. Vance smiled grimly. There are worse fates. Commander Yithro entered the observation deck. The insect-like alien had been assigned to the Prometheus as a Concord liaison, though everyone knew he was also there to observe and report. In the weeks since the Alliance was formed, he had watched the human crew with growing fascination. Captain, he said, the fleet is accelerating. They will reach the Shroud Nebula in 18 hours. The Shroud Nebula. A vast cloud of dust and gas that lay between the outer territories and the core worlds. The only navigable route passed through a narrow corridor at the nebula's edge. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Then we should get moving, Vance said. She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at Kethra. Ambassador, you should return to Nexus Prime. What comes next will not be pretty. Kethra shook her head. I am staying. Someone needs to witness what you are about to do. Someone needs to remember it. Vance studied her for a moment, then nodded. Very well. But stay off the combat deck. Things are going to get rough. She left the observation deck and headed for the bridge. Her crew was already at battle stations. Every console was manned. Every system was powered and ready. The Prometheus hummed with contained violence. Status report. Vance ordered as she took her seat. Commander Park answered. All weapons online. Shield generators at full capacity. Engine core is stable. The crew is ready, Captain. Good. Set course for the Shroud Nebula. Maximum speed. The great ship turned and accelerated into the darkness. Behind it, the lights of Nexus Prime faded to a distant point. Ahead, destiny waited. The journey took 12 hours. 12 hours of preparation, planning, and prayer. The human crew checked and rechecked their equipment. They said goodbye to friends and loved ones through recorded messages. They wrote letters that might never be sent. And then they reached the nebula. The shroud was beautiful in a terrible way. Clouds of purple and gold dust stretched across the void, lit from within by the light of dying stars. The corridor that passed through it was only a few light hours wide. Any fleet that wanted to reach the core worlds would have to pass through here. The Prometheus took position at the narrowest point. One ship, 3 kilometers of blackened armor and bristling weapons. A single guardian standing against the darkness. "They are coming," Lieutenant Tanaka reported. "Enemy fleet will reach our position in approximately 3 hours." Vance nodded. "All hands, this is the captain. In 3 hours, we will engage the Velthari fleet. I will not lie to you. The odds are not in our favor. We are one ship against hundreds. Many of us will not survive this day." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But I want you to remember something. Remember who we are. Remember what we have survived. Our ancestors were betrayed and abandoned. They were left to die in a prison of radiation and despair, but they did not give up. They did not surrender. They fought. They built. They prepared. And now, 12,000 years later, we are here." Her voice grew stronger. "We are the children of Earth. We are the descendants of warriors who never stopped fighting. Today, we fight for the galaxy that tried to destroy us. We fight for species that do not even know our names. We fight because that is what we do. That is who we are." She stood up from her chair. "This is our moment. This is our purpose. Whatever happens in the next few hours, know that history will remember us. Humanity will remember us. We are the Prometheus. We are the fire that guards." Around the ship, men and women straightened their backs and lifted their heads. Fear remained in their hearts, but it was joined now by something stronger. Pride, determination, the fierce, unbreakable will that had carried humanity through 12,000 years of darkness. "Battle stations," Vance ordered. "Prepare to engage." The hours passed. The enemy fleet drew closer. On the main display, red dots multiplied until they filled the screen. 347 ships, destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and at the center, the moon-sized dreadnought that controlled them all. "Enemy fleet has entered weapons range," Tanaka reported. "Hold fire," Vance said. "Let them come closer. I want our first strike to count." The Velthari ships advanced in perfect formation. No hesitation, no caution. They were machines. After all, they felt no fear. They knew no doubt. They simply moved forward, executing programs that had been written 12,000 years ago. "Closer, closer." "Now," Vance said. The Prometheus opened fire. Light erupted from every weapon port. Missiles streamed through space like meteors. Energy beams cut across the void, each one powerful enough to slice through a battleship's hull. The first wave of Velthari destroyers simply vanished, torn apart by forces they were never designed to withstand. 15 kills, Park reported. "They are returning fire." The enemy weapons lit up the darkness. Hundreds of beams converged on the Prometheus simultaneously. The shields flared white-hot as they absorbed the assault. "Shield integrity at 82%, Tanaka said. "They are hitting us hard. Keep firing. All batteries. Do not let up." The battle became chaos. The Prometheus danced through the enemy formation, spinning and dodging with a grace that seemed impossible for a ship of its size. It was never designed to fight defensively. It was designed to attack, to move, to strike and fade and strike again. Velthari ships exploded one after another. The human weapons were devastating, far beyond anything the automated fleet had been programmed to expect. But there were so many of them. For every ship destroyed, 2 more moved to take its place. On the bridge, Kethra watched in amazement. She had seen recordings of ancient battles. She had studied the tactics of the old alliance. But nothing had prepared her for this. The humans fought like nothing she had ever witnessed. They were relentless, aggressive, utterly without hesitation. "How are they doing this?" she asked Yithro. "One ship against hundreds. They should be dead already." Yithro shook his head slowly. "They have had 12,000 years to prepare for this moment. 12,000 years to refine their weapons, their shields, their tactics. They built the Prometheus to fight an entire fleet alone, and they are winning." They were not winning, but they were holding. For 3 hours, the Prometheus fought against impossible odds. Ship after ship fell to its weapons, but more kept coming. Always more. The damage began to accumulate. A lucky shot penetrated the shields and tore through the outer hull. Another struck the engine section, reducing thrust capacity by 20%. Fires broke out on multiple decks. Crew members fell at their stations, killed by explosions and shrapnel. But still they fought. Lieutenant Chen died when his console overloaded. Ensign Yamamoto was crushed by a falling support beam. Dr. Morrison worked in the medical bay until a direct hit destroyed it, killing everyone inside. Vance felt each death like a wound. These were her people, her family, the men and women who had trusted her to lead them into battle, and she was watching them die. But she could not stop. She could not falter. Too much depended on this fight. "Captain," Park said. His voice was strained. "We have destroyed 112 enemy vessels, but our shields are failing. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Engine output is down to 50%. How many enemies remain? 235. Not counting the flagship. Still too many. Far too many. We need to take out the flagship," Vance said. "It controls the entire fleet. If we destroy it, the automated ships will lose coordination. They will be vulnerable. The flagship is at the center of their formation," Tanaka pointed out. "We would have to fight through over 200 ships to reach it. In our current condition, that is impossible." Vance stared at the display. The dreadnought hung in space like a malevolent moon. Its weapons were not yet firing. It did not need to. The smaller ships were doing its work for it. She thought about her options. There were not many. "There is another way," she said quietly. Park looked at her. "Captain, if we cannot fight through them, we go through them. One straight line. Maximum speed. All weapons forward." She paused. "Ramming speed." Silence fell over the bridge. "That is suicide," Park said. "Maybe. Maybe not. The Prometheus was built to withstand anything. If we can punch through their formation and reach the flagship, we can plant charges in its core, destroy it from the inside. And if we cannot punch through, then we die fighting, which is what we were always going to do anyway." Vance looked around the bridge. "Anyone who wants to abandon ship can take the escape pods. No one will think less of you. This is my choice. You do not have to follow it." No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, Lieutenant Tanaka broke the silence. "With respect, Captain, we did not come all this way to run. If you are going, we are going with you." Heads nodded around the bridge. Tired faces, wounded faces, but determined. Vance felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them away. "Very well," she said. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed. Engineering, divert all power to forward shields and engines. Weapons, target every ship in our path. We are going straight through." The Prometheus turned toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Its engines roared to life with renewed fury. It began to accelerate. The Velthari ships responded immediately. Hundreds of weapons locked onto the charging dreadnought. Fire poured toward it from every direction. The shields screamed under the assault, but the Prometheus kept going. Faster and faster, smashing through enemy vessels like a battering ram through a wooden gate. Destroyers shattered against its armored prow. Cruisers broke apart as it plowed through their formations. On the observation deck, Kethra gripped a support rail and watched the destruction unfold around her. The ship shook with constant impacts. Alarms wailed, emergency lights flickered, and still they kept going. "Shield integrity at 20%, Tanaka shouted. 15%. 10. Hold together, Vance whispered. Just a little longer. The flagship loomed ahead, massive, terrifying. Its weapons were finally coming online, preparing to annihilate the approaching human ship. But it was too late. The Prometheus was too close. Too fast. "All hands," Vance said. "Brace for impact." The human dreadnought struck the Velthari flagship at full speed. 3 kilometers of reinforced armor crashed into the ancient war machine's hull. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. The impact tore a hole the size of a city block in the flagship's outer shell. And the Prometheus kept going. Deeper and deeper into the enemy vessel, embedding itself in the machine's core like a knife in a heart. When the motion finally stopped, Vance opened her eyes. The bridge was in ruins. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Bodies lay motionless on the deck. But she was alive. "Damage report," she croaked. Park pulled himself up from the floor. Blood streamed down his face. "We are inside the flagship, Captain. Engines are dead. Shields are gone. But the reactor is still functioning. Then we can still complete the mission." Vance stood up on shaking legs. "All Marines, report to the main airlock. We are going outside." She looked at the survivors on her bridge. So few. Too few. But enough. "Time to finish this," she said, and she went to war one last time. The corridors of the Velthari flagship were dark. Captain Elena Vance moved through them at the head of a small team. 30 Marines, 30 human soldiers in combat armor, armed with weapons that could tear through steel. Behind them came Ambassador Kethra, Commander Yithro, and the few surviving bridge officers who could still walk. The air was cold and stale. No one had breathed it in 12,000 years. The machines that ran this ship did not need oxygen. They did not need warmth. They needed only power and purpose. The AI core should be at the center of the vessel, Lieutenant Park said. He was studying a portable scanner, trying to map the massive ship's interior. About 2 kilometers from our current position. Then we move fast, Vance said. Before their security systems figure out we are here, they advanced through the alien corridors. The walls were covered in strange symbols and patterns that glowed with faint blue light. Velthari writing, a language that had been dead for millennia. Kethra found herself reading the symbols. Her ancestors had studied the Velthari language during the ancient war. Some of that knowledge had survived in the archives. Victory through purification, she translated quietly. Extermination is mercy. The weak must be eliminated, so that the strong may flourish. Charming people, Park muttered. They believed they were doing the universe a favor, Kethra said. They thought that by destroying everyone else, they were purifying existence, making it perfect. And now their machines are trying to finish the job. Vance shook her head. Some ideas refused to die. They reached a junction where 4 corridors met. The Marines spread out, covering each approach. Vance checked her weapon and prepared to give the order to move. That was when the machines attacked. They came from everywhere at once. Security drones that had been dormant for thousands of years, suddenly awakened by the presence of intruders. They were small, spider-like things with multiple legs and energy weapons built into their bodies. Dozens of them poured from the walls and ceiling. Contact, someone shouted. The corridor erupted in weapons fire. Human rifles cut through the ancient drones like scythes through wheat. But the machines kept coming, more and more of them, climbing over the bodies of their fallen companions, pressing forward with relentless determination. A Marine went down, his armor pierced by multiple energy beams. Another was dragged into the shadows by grasping mechanical limbs. The team was being overwhelmed. Fall back to the junction, Vance ordered. Concentrate fire on the northern corridor. They retreated step by step, fighting for every meter. The drones pressed harder. It seemed like there was no end to them. Then Commander Yithro stepped forward. The insect-like alien had taken a human rifle from a fallen Marine. He was not trained to use it. He had never fired a weapon in his life, but he had watched the humans fight. He had seen their determination, their courage, and he had decided to match it. He opened fire. His aim was terrible. Most of his shots went wide, but a few hit their targets, shattering drones and buying precious seconds for the team. "What are you doing?" Vance shouted. "What I should have done hours ago," Yithro shouted back. "I spent my whole career watching empty space and waiting for retirement. Now I am finally doing something that matters." A drone leaped at him. He smashed it aside with the butt of his rifle. Another attacked from behind. Kethra grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and crushed it. For a moment, human and alien fought side by side, the way their ancestors had, 12,000 years ago, the way it was always meant to be. The drone attack faltered. The endless stream of machines slowed to a trickle, then stopped. Silence fell over the junction. Bodies lay everywhere, human and machine alike. Vance looked at the survivors. 18 Marines left. Park, Chen's replacement at communications, Kethra, Yithro, a handful of others. Not many, but enough. "Keep moving," she said. "We are running out of time." They pressed deeper into the flagship. The corridors grew wider as they approached the core. Strange machines lined the walls, devices whose purpose no one could guess. Technology that had been advanced 12,000 years ago and still seemed alien today. Finally, they reached a massive door. It was sealed tight, covered in warning symbols that needed no translation. Beyond this door lay the brain of the entire Velthari fleet. "Can we blow it?" Vance asked. Park examined the door. "It would take everything we have, and we need those charges for the core itself. Then we find another way." Kethra stepped forward. She studied the control panel beside the door. The symbols were old, but she could read them. "There is an emergency override," she said. "The Velthari built it in case they ever needed to access the core quickly. They probably never expected anyone else to find it. Can you activate it? Kethra touched the panel. She entered a sequence of commands, translating the ancient language as she went. The door groaned. Machinery whirred deep within the walls, and the door opened. The AI core was enormous. It filled a chamber the size of a cathedral. Towers of crystal and metal rose toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Energy flowed through conduits like blood through veins. At the center of it all, a massive sphere of light pulsed with steady rhythm, the heart of the Velthari fleet, the mind that controlled every automated ship, the last legacy of a dead empire, and it knew they were there. Intruders detected. A voice boomed through the chamber. It spoke in multiple languages simultaneously. Velthari, Concord Standard, and, somehow impossibly, English. Organic contamination identified. Initiating purification. Defense turrets emerged from the walls. Energy beams lanced across the chamber. More drones poured from hidden ports. Spread out, Vance shouted. Get those charges to the core. The final battle began. Marines died with every step forward. The AI's defenses were overwhelming. But the humans pressed on. They had come too far. Sacrificed too much. They would not stop now. Sergeant Morrison reached the base of the central sphere. She slapped a charge against its surface and activated the timer. A drone shot her in the back a second later. She fell without a sound. Corporal Tanaka made it to another position before a turret cut him down. But his charge was in place. Lieutenant Kim died planting the third. Private Okonkwo the fourth. One by one, the Marines fell. And one by one, the charges were set. Finally, only Vance and a handful of survivors remained. They had retreated to a defensive position near the entrance. The AI's drones circled them, waiting. Futile, the voice said. You cannot destroy me. My programming is eternal. My purpose is absolute. Organic life is a disease. I am the cure. Vance looked at the sphere. 6 charges were in place. The timer was set. In 3 minutes, they would detonate. The core would be destroyed, but they still needed to get out. We are leaving, she said. Fall back to the Prometheus. There is no escape. Your ship is damaged beyond repair. Your crew is dead. You have achieved nothing. We achieved everything. Vance smiled. Look around you. Your fleet is in chaos. Your drones are depleted. And in 3 minutes, you are going to die. I will survive. I am eternal. Nothing is eternal. Not you, not us, not anything. Vance raised her weapon. But today, you end first. She opened fire on the nearest drone. The survivors charged toward the door. Behind them, the AI screamed with electronic rage. Stop them. Destroy them. But there were too few drones left. Too few defenses. The humans had fought through everything the AI could throw at them. And now they were leaving. They ran through the corridors. Back the way they had come. Past the bodies of fallen friends. Past the wreckage of destroyed machines. The timer counted down in the back of Vance's mind. 2 minutes, 90 seconds, 1 minute. They reached the Prometheus. The ship was a ruin. Half of it had been crushed in the impact with the flagship. Fires burned on multiple decks. But the escape pods were still functional. Everyone in, Vance shouted. Move, Kethra stumbled. Yithro caught her and pulled her toward a pod. Park was already inside, working the controls. The survivors piled in wherever they could fit. 30 seconds, 20, 10. The escape pods launched. They rocketed away from the dying ships, tumbling into the darkness of space. Behind them, the charges detonated. The explosion was visible from across the system. The Velthari flagship tore itself apart as its core overloaded. The shockwave spread outward, crippling the automated fleet that surrounded it. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated moments ago began drifting aimlessly. Their commands cut off, their purpose lost. In the escape pod, Vance watched the destruction through a small viewport. The Prometheus was gone. Her ship, her home. The vessel that humanity had spent generations building. But it had done its job. The fleet is disintegrating, Park reported. His voice was numb with exhaustion. Without the flagship to coordinate them, the automated ships are shutting down. Some are still active, but they are no longer organized. The threat is over. Casualties? Vance asked. Unknown. The Prometheus crew was approximately 400. I estimate less than 50 survivors. 400 lives, lost in a single battle. For a galaxy that had tried to murder their species. Vance closed her eyes. She felt very old. Kethra moved to sit beside her. The alien ambassador looked as tired as Vance felt. Her silver skin was covered in dust and dried blood. Her eyes were haunted by the things she had seen. "You saved us," she said quietly. "You saved the entire galaxy. We did what we had to do. No. You did what no one else could have done. What no one else would have done." Kethra paused. "My ancestors were wrong about humanity. They saw your capacity for violence and called it dangerous. They did not see the other side of it. The courage, the sacrifice, the willingness to fight and die for others." Vance opened her eyes. Every species has both sides. The capacity for destruction and the capacity for protection. The difference is what you choose to do with it. And humanity chose to protect. We always have. Even when we were fighting each other. Even when we were making terrible mistakes. At our core, we fight for the things we love. She looked at the distant stars. The galaxy was our home once. We helped build it. We helped save it. And even after everything that happened, it is still our home. Rescue ships arrived 3 hours later. Concord vessels that had been waiting at a safe distance, watching the battle unfold. They collected the escape pods and carried the survivors to safety. The news spread across the galaxy within days. The Velthari fleet had been destroyed. The threat was over, and humanity had saved them all. Reactions varied. Some species celebrated. Others mourned. Some refused to believe it. But no one could deny the truth. A human warship, crewed by the descendants of a people the galaxy had tried to murder, had sacrificed itself to protect everyone. On Nexus Prime, the council met in emergency session. The debate lasted for weeks. What to do about humanity? What to do about the revealed secrets? What to do about everything? In the end, the decision was unanimous. The sacred accords were rewritten. The laws that had banned warships and weapons were amended. Not to start building military fleets, not yet, but to acknowledge that such things might be necessary someday. And humanity was offered a place in the Concord, not just membership, something more, a role that no species had ever held before. Guardians, the galaxy would rebuild its defenses. Slowly, carefully, with human guidance. Humans would train the new soldiers, design the new ships, lead the new fleets. They would be the shield that protected the galaxy from threats to come. Captain Elena Vance attended the ceremony where the offer was formally made. She stood in the great chamber where she had first revealed the truth about humanity's imprisonment. Now that chamber was filled with representatives who looked at her with gratitude instead of fear. Council leader Morthax spoke the words of welcome. He apologized for the crimes of his ancestors. He thanked humanity for their sacrifice. He asked them to take their rightful place among the stars. Vance accepted on behalf of her people. Her voice was strong and clear. "We did not come here seeking revenge. We did not come here seeking power. We came here seeking the truth. And we found something more. We found that the galaxy, for all its flaws, is worth protecting. That the species who live here, for all their mistakes, deserve a chance to grow and learn, and become better." She paused, looking around the chamber. 12,000 years ago, our ancestors fought alongside yours against the Velthari Dominion. They won that war together, and then they were betrayed. But we did not let that betrayal define us. We did not become the monsters you feared we were. We became something else. Survivors, builders, guardians. Her voice grew soft. Today, we begin a new chapter. Human and alien, working together, learning from each other, protecting each other. The cage that held us is gone. The lies that divided us are exposed. What remains is possibility. The possibility of a future where no one is afraid of their neighbors, where no one is forgotten or erased. She smiled. "We are not your enemies. We never were. We are your partners, your allies, your friends. And if the darkness ever comes again, we will be here. We will always be here." The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from 100 species rose to their feet, clapping hands and tentacles and appendages of every kind. The sound echoed off the walls and ceiling, filling the space with the noise of hope. Ambassador Kethra stood beside Captain Vance, watching the celebration unfold. She thought about everything that had happened, the revelations, the battles, the sacrifices. It seemed impossible that so much could change in such a short time. "What will you do now?" she asked. Vance looked at her. "Rebuild. There is a lot of work to do. New ships to design, new soldiers to train, new defenses to construct." She paused. "And there are still humans in the quarantine zone. Our families. Our people. We need to bring them home." "We will help you," Kethra said. "It is the least we can do. Thank you." Vance hesitated. "There is one more thing." "What?" "When this is all settled, when humanity has a home in the galaxy again, I would like to visit your world. See where you came from. Learn about your people." Kethra felt surprised. "Why?" "Because we are neighbors now, and good neighbors should know each other." Vance smiled. "We spent 12,000 years alone. I think we are ready for some company." Kethra returned the smile. "You would be welcome. Anytime." They stood together in the great chamber, two women from different species, watching the birth of a new era. Behind them, the past lay buried. Ahead of them, the future waited. Outside the chamber, the stars shone bright and cold. The same stars that had watched humanity's betrayal. The same stars that had witnessed the Prometheus's sacrifice. The same stars that would see whatever came next. The galaxy had let down its guard. It had forgotten how to fight. It had convinced itself that peace would last forever. But now it remembered. Now it understood. Some threats could not be negotiated with. Some enemies could not be reasoned with. Sometimes, the only answer was to stand up and fight. Humanity had never forgotten that truth. And now, at last, they had taught it to the stars. The cage was broken. The lies were exposed. The Guardians had come home, and the galaxy would never be the same. On a distant world, where the first human colony ships would soon land, a child looked up at the sky and wondered what was out there. Her parents told her stories about the ancient war, the great betrayal, the heroes who had saved everyone. She did not understand all of it. She was too young. But she understood one thing. Somewhere among those stars, there were people watching over her. People who would fight for her. People who would never stop protecting her. People who were human. And that was enough. She smiled and went to sleep, dreaming of the future. A future bright with possibility. A future worth fighting for. A future that humanity had earned. One sacrifice at a time. The end.